This is Scott Spears, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Scott Spears Now. We've been off for a few weeks, but we are so glad to be back because we are in historic times, and I truly do mean that. These episodes are available on YouTube, so watch them forever. I don't know what year you might be watching this, but we are in early June of 2023, and when I speak of historic times, this is what I speak of. A former president, President Donald Trump, has been indicted and arraigned, as of this week, by the federal government, 37 felony indictment counts. Now, they all have to do with classified documents. Former President Trump was arraigned yesterday, and we're going to talk about everything that led up to this, and we're going to talk about the arraignment itself, and we're going to talk about where we go from here, because it just happened yesterday. So we're going to see how this all shakes out, and nobody better to talk about it with than a lady who has worked for the federal government, state government, and local government. Only person in the history of the world to serve on the local, state, and national level as treasurer. She is our pal, 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow. Mary Ellen, good to be with you. When you keep hearing historic times, because we've been hearing that since Friday.
Right.
What does that mean to you, somebody who's worked in the federal government?
Well, you really stop and think, and it really is. I mean, who ever thought this would happen? We never thought we would ever see anything like this, and we're in the middle of it now.
Why do you think Donald Trump is so different from the other 45 presidents?
Well, he's an unusual man, I think. I think he thinks he can get away with anything and tries to do that and has gotten himself in trouble.
I want to go back in time a little bit to speak about Donald Trump before we get to the indictments. When he was elected in 2016, what did you think? Did you think maybe there was hope for him then that he might become presidential?
Yes. I thought he might attack business in a better manner than some of the people have that's been president, but he didn't. He was very unusual as a president. It was a big surprise to me.
You know, yesterday morning on the radio show, I had Governor Strickland on talking about the indictment. Mm-hmm. And Governor Strickland was, I think he was a psychologist. And he had studied that, and he was telling me that he truly believes that there is something flawed in Donald Trump's personality psychologically as somebody who has worked in that field. Well,
that could be. I feel that he did not have the proper bringing up that he should have had. I read the book that his cousin or whatever her relationship, what is her relationship, Mary Trump. Mary Trump. I read the book, and it told about his life when he was growing up, and he didn't have any father that taught him how to do things the way they should be done. I mean, his father let him get away with things, and I think that's just how he ended up this way, that he just thinks he can get away with things.
He's an interesting dichotomy, because on the one hand, you would have to say that obviously there are some flaws in how he does things ethically, but also he did achieve the highest office in the land.
Yes.
So he had to have drive and I guess ego enough to want to do that, but yet maybe that's also what has failed him as president.
Well, yes, he worked hard at running for office, I thought. He had all of those sessions with big crowds, and he was entertaining and said things that I thought were totally wrong in many cases, but the people loved it. And he built up this following and he's still got a big following, really, not like he did have, but the people ended up believing in him for some reason.
You know, it's an interesting thing. You used a word there. You said he was entertaining. Now, clearly, he was not somebody you were ever going to vote for.
No.
But you did find him entertaining to
Yes.
watch.
Well, I listened to his speeches because I kind of enjoyed listening to him.
And see, that's an interesting... How many people are there who you would never vote for them, you don't agree with their
Yeah.
policies, but yet you find them entertaining to watch?
There's not very many.
So what is that? What is that about Donald Trump? That you can watch him and be entertained, but not agree with a thing. He's kind of like Archie Bunker in a way.
Well, I'm trying to think if there was anybody else like that I watched, and I don't think there was.
Now, were you ever entertained by Reagan?
Well, a little bit. I thought he was so easygoing that I don't know. I did like to listen to him, but he wasn't that entertaining. He had good speeches, but they were nothing like Trump's that made me laugh. You know, Trump made me laugh.
Do you think maybe that's his appeal in the end? Is that, I mean, at a time when everything is so serious, and you know, they always used to say about politics, it's boring to a certain group of people. Well, maybe he brought those people into the tent.
It could be.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a lot of the people are not the ones that normally pay attention to politics.
Well, and I'm not saying they're on a Trump level, but have you noticed lately that people like AOC, who's out there a little bit on the fringe in the Democratic Party, and the Marjorie Taylor Greene in the Republican Party, they don't have big seats, they don't represent big groups, but they get all the television and the radio newspaper time because they do different things than other. Maybe they're more entertaining when they talk.
Well, they grab the moment. Yeah, at that particular moment.
Well, it's kind of interesting to me that Leslie Stahl, when she did the interview on 60 Minutes with Leslie Taylor Greene, or Marjorie Taylor Greene, a few weeks ago, she really got taken to task about that because they said, why are you putting her on? She's not anything. She's not representation of any huge thing. Well, it's because she's entertaining and people watched.
Well, and another thing, I think she wanted people to hear what she had to say because it could have been for the opposite reason than what they thought.
Well, and that became the thing with Trump, to be honest. I remember the president of CBS at the time he was running in 2015-16 said you look this quote up on Google, but it's something very similar. Leslie Moonves was the president of CBS, and he says he's horrible for the country, but he's great for our ratings. Mm-hmm. He drove the news ratings up.
Yes, sure he did.
So they put him on all the time.
Yeah.
And he got elected.
That's right.
And certainly they weren't putting Hillary on all the time.
No, and she wasn't that entertaining, I must admit, but she would have been a good president.
So now the age that we're in, 2023, do you have to be entertaining? Because at this point, we have a man who's been indicted by New York, President Trump. He's been indicted by the federal government now and arraigned, 37 counts. He's running for president in the Republican primary. And he's leading by 30 points over everybody else. So apparently indictments don't matter in primaries. And maybe you have to be entertaining.
Well, I think people are looking for somebody that's going to be a good leader. Joe Biden, I think he's handling this so well by not saying anything. He is a good leader. He's done so much, and I would say that his speeches are entertaining. I was very entertained by his speeches when I listened to them. I don't know how other people feel, but I always wanted to hear him speak.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I go back to even the early 2000s with Al Gore and George W. Bush. Now, George Bush would mispronounce words like nuclear. He would say nuclear. And he would sometimes put the wrong words in the sentence. But they would criticize Al Gore for being as if he was lecturing George W. Bush. And people didn't like that.
They said he was too stiff.
Too stiff. And Al Gore could have a sense of humor. He kind of reminded me of Bob Dole, because Bob Dole was very stiff when he ran for president, but had a sense of humor in interviews.
Well, Al Gore had a sense of humor, but I have found that the press will get on a subject with a candidate and they will drive it home. I mean, and that's what they did with Al Gore. And they said he was stiff and he didn't react and all of those things, but he wouldn't have put us in 2 wars either.
Where has George W. Bush gone?
I don't know.
We don't hear or see much of him anymore.
No, he's very quiet.
He's become very quiet. We hear a lot about, of course, Jimmy Carter now, who's in hospice care, but I think doing okay, as you can be expected. And of course, we hear about President Obama and President Clinton from time to time. But George W. Bush has kind of disappeared.
Yes, he has. He's laying low.
Well, I think his party no longer is really one that supports what he believes.
That's right. And his family, I mean, they certainly don't have anything to do with Trump.
Mary Ellen, when we look back on George W. Bush, certainly you did not support a lot of what he did. But is he... do people miss those days of republicanism when they look at Trump to think, well, he wasn't so bad?
Oh, I think absolutely. I think everybody, well, I don't know about everybody, but a lot of people want to see the Republican Party that we remember in the past, that stood for things that were good things, and you don't see it today.
Who is running the Republican Party?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because at this point, it seems like, we were talking about this before we went on, there are other candidates in this Republican primary. You have Chris Christie, who was a very popular governor of New Jersey. They wanted him to run for president several years ago, thought he would win. You have the former vice president, Mike Pence. You have Nikki Haley, who people have been very high on at times in her career. You've got Scott and Hutchinson people don't know a lot about, but they could come up, who knows. But you do have some heavy hitters in there. You've got Christie, you've got Pence, and DeSantis.
And also the North Dakota governor. What's his name?
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He's kind of, nobody knows about him.
He's kind of out in the fringe, too.
Yeah, but he's announced, and he's trying,
Well, but can any of these people, Christie, DeSantis, Pence, or Nikki Haley, can they really run against Trump if Trump is setting the agenda for the party?
Well, you cannot predict what will happen. Things could happen that all of a sudden somebody's going to shoot ahead. It could happen. And right now it's questionable, but who knows what's in the future.
We talked a little bit about this on the radio the other night, but I want to run through this for the television audience here. Give me your thoughts on these other Republican candidates. Chris Christie.
Well, I think that he's in it to just cause trouble, probably. I give him credit for how honest he is about what's going on, because he's very direct with what he thinks is wrong with Trump's campaign, and he's saying it all the time to everybody, and I do give him credit for that. But I don't think he's in it for the long run.
Do you think he's there just to take Trump out?
Yes. Yeah. He's got an edge. As I mentioned before, he caused Trump's son-in-law's father to go to prison, and then Trump was going to make him one of his top officials and let him on, and then shut him off very dramatically, and I think that made Christie really upset, and. Yes, don't you think that was the case there?
There has been a lot of thought given that Chris Christie does not appeal. He might appeal to some Democrats. I've heard this theory that he might appeal to some Democrats because he dislikes Trump so much, and he's from New Jersey. but that he would never win a Republican primary because Republicans are voting in that and he doesn't have the support there. So he's just there to take out Trump.
Yes. Well, yeah, I don't think he can ever win. There's still that question about the bridge that he was involved in, and nobody ever solved that. That just hung out there.
You know, I've heard some Democrats say, though, and I haven't heard them say it about any other Republican candidate in this primary, but they've said it about Christie, that they like him, that he's somebody they could vote for. Not that they would, but that they could, because I think it's because simply he's going after Trump where nobody else is.
Another thing, he's entertaining.
He's got that too.
He's very entertaining. I like to listen to him because he's entertaining. Yeah.
You know, this is an awful question to ask, but it's silly, but we have to ask it. It's the same thing we ask about women and how they do their hair and how they dress. Could we ever elect a man over 350 pounds president? They make a lot of this. We've only done it once.
Okay, let's go the other way. Could we ever elect a woman that's over 300?
That's a good question. I don't know. You know, people are so conscious of things.
How people look is very important.
Yeah, and I really do wonder, we've only really ever had one truly heavy president.
No, you're right. I mean, think back. I think Teddy Roosevelt might have been maybe a little on the heavy side.
And I think Clinton was a little heavy, not...
Oh, he wasn't heavy.
Not heavy?
No,
No.
He wasn't heavy, no.
They always used to make fun of him for going to McDonald's and things like that.
Well, he did like his food.
Yeah, he did like his food. But Taft, of course, was the heaviest. We had Taft at over 300.
Oh, the father.
Yes.
Yeah.
But other than that, they've really all been more slim, more or less.
Yes, they have. You think back and you look at the ones way back, they were all thin. What? Some were short.
Some were short.
And usually a president isn't short, but once in a while that happened.
Well, I think all the sacred cows have been taken down except two, because we gray hair was an issue at one point. It's not an issue anymore. Age certainly doesn't seem to be an issue anymore. Obama being the first African-American president, it might still be an issue, but we really can't say that we haven't done it. We have. We've elected short people. We've elected tall people. The only things we haven't done are heavy people and women.
Okay. You're right. I'm trying to think if there was anybody that had any... the only one I can think of is Teddy Roosevelt.
I think it's just Teddy Roosevelt and Taft were the...
I can't remember Taft being heavy.
Taft, I think, was the heaviest.
Was he?
I think he was.
There was some remark about him getting stuck in a bathtub.
Stuck in the bathtub.
That was it. I forgot about that.
Well, see, and look, they made... And if you ask kids today about William Howard Taft... Now, William Howard Taft was from Ohio.
Yeah.
He was a good president. He became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and what do people know about him? He got stuck in a bathtub. So they know about his weight.
Yes, that's kind of sad to be remembered.
Isn't it?
Yes, right.
But it's that thing you just said a few minutes ago. Boy, once they get something on you,
oh yeah,
it sticks to you.
Yeah, they don't let it go.
And I did it too with Bill Clinton, fast food.
Yeah.
They kept bringing that up, that he would stop at McDonald's and...
Oh, I think Trump beats Clinton on fast food.
That's true. Trump does like his fast food. I believe he served it at the White House at a state dinner. They had sandwiches out there from McDonald's. But in regard to this, so I guess the end result is, would Christie's weight work against him if he could ever get the nomination?
I don't know. I can't really judge that. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I can't really say that it would.
Because we do always care about their health. I know the physicals always come out.
Well, they always have to have their examinations, and then they have to tell everybody what's wrong with them, which I think is kind of bad that they have to do that.
Health and their taxes. We have to see.
Yeah. Well, and we never have seen.
That's
yes.
Yeah, Trump.
Have we?
Trump got away with that. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Well, and honestly, he was just one who said, "No, I'm not going to do this," and he won.
Well, that's right. He's said no to everything he didn't want to do.
Remember his doctor during the election? That doctor that said he was the healthiest person alive. I think that doctor has died since.
It probably has.
I think that poor doctor has went on to his reward. When the indictment came down on Friday, the 37 felony counts, all having to do with these classified documents. Now, I've gotten a little more clarification on this since Friday. Two things that have stuck out to me about this is, it's a federal case, first of all. But number one is that apparently this has nothing to... When they first asked him for these documents, he did turn over more than 100 documents. It has nothing to do with them. It's the fact that he lied about the ones that he kept. If he had turned these over the first time they had asked him, they're saying that most likely this would have never happened. So why do that?
You don't lie to the FBI.
Yeah.
That's one thing you want to remember.
That's a good rhyme, too. Don't
Yes.
lie to the FBI.
That's right.
Never.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you would think that Donald Trump, a former president, with Secret Service and many lawyers around him, would know better than that.
Yes, he did, probably. He did know better, but he didn't care. I don't think he cared.
Do you think he thought that they would never charge him?
Oh, I think so. I think he thought he'd get away with it.
Now, the other thing I heard over the weekend, which I found this very fascinating, because a lot of people were saying, how did they get these text messages and audio tapes and the things that they do have of President Trump in this indictment? It all came from his lawyers. Because apparently he lied to his lawyers, and his lawyers are ethically bound to tell the federal government the truth, and when they found out that he had more documents, they had to turn over their text messages and things. So all the evidence that they're using against him came from people who he employed.
Yes, and he can't find a lawyer now to hire. They won't have anything to do with him.
Well, why would you instruct your lawyers to lie?
Right. Well, he said, he wanted them to hide the papers too. I mean, he said, can't we just hide them somewhere? Yes, it's unreal.
And this picture of all the boxes in the bathroom
Yes, right.
at Mar-a-Lago, it's almost an unbelievable thing that this would happen.
That's right.
Do you have any speculation on why he wanted these documents?
I think he was going to use them for his benefit. I mean, everything he did was for his benefit. So that had to be what he had in mind. He could show people these and how important he was. And I think that's what he was using them for and wanted to use them for.
And really, you're not allowed to show these to people.
No, that's right.
So it's a quandary.
Yeah.
Before we get to the actual arraignment, I want to go pick up these other Republican candidates. Pence. Somebody said the other day, it was a joke they were making, but they said Pence would have been a good Republican candidate in the Eisenhower days. That he's probably. That type, not charismatic.
Yeah.
Just a kind of a Bible-believing, calls his wife mother type of guy. Do you see any chance for Pence?
No.
No. Do you think he'll get any speed anywhere?
No.
Can he be aggressive
I
in the
think
debates?
I appreciate what he did to pass the vote along, but I have no use for that man. I couldn't stand to be around him.
Really?
No, I could not. He's not my type.
Well, do you think, though, he might pick up any of the Democratic vote in a Maine election because he did certify the election?
I don't think so. He stood behind Trump when everything was going on. He didn't do anything about anything. And the only thing he did was to pass the vote. And that's all you can say he did.
The only other one getting any real traction or publicity besides Christie and Pence, he's been in it now a couple weeks, is DeSantis. I believe last time you were on, he was talking about getting in. He has gotten in, but I believe after this indictment, he is the closest to Trump. I believe he's second in the primary race, but now he's further down than he was before after the indictment.
Yes. I think his biggest problem was Disney. I think his statements and the things he tried to do to Disney has really hurt him. Everybody loves Disney.
Yeah, that you don't want to go after Mickey Mouse.
No.
Do you think there's any hope for any of these Republican candidates to be a vice presidential candidate for Donald Trump if he does get the nomination? I wouldn't think Pence, because he was, and apparently there's some friction there now. Certainly wouldn't think Christie.
You're saying as his running mate?
Yeah, if Trump does get the nomination, would he pick a DeSantis? Would he?
I don't know. I have no idea what he would do.
Jim
really.
Jordan?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that scares the heck out of me. Okay.
They do seem to be buddy-buddy, though, a lot.
Yes, they do. That's a horrible thought.
You know, our congressman, though, does stand behind him in all this.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he does. Yeah.
What do you think that connection is?
I don't know.
It's different.
Mm-hmm. It is.
What has happened to somebody like Nikki Haley, who at one point they thought she was just greater than sliced bread in the Republican Party? Now they don't really pay much attention to her.
Well, I think she's flipped her beliefs too many times. I think they've given up on her because you can't do that in public office, running for public office.
Do you think that Biden will keep Kamala Harris as his vice presidential candidate?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Is there anybody in the Democratic Party who could come up and challenge Biden in a primary?
Well, there probably would be somebody somewhere. It's hard to tell. There's a lot of very important Democrats out there. Newsom in California, I think, would have a shot. I don't know if anybody else would have the power behind him. I think he's got enough power that he could probably run. Can you think of anybody?
I was trying to think there, and I mean, it's very interesting because there is a guard of Democrats that are popular, like Schumer. Hillary Clinton still gets mentioned a lot and is out on the speaking tour. Certainly Nancy Pelosi still is in office and has her following.
Oh, yes.
But they're all older.
Yes.
And I don't know if there's anybody who under the age of 70 is popular. Schumer, but he's over 70. But
well, you take any one of the governors. There's a lot of very attractive women governors that might have the Michigan governor is a very attractive woman, and I think she's really on the ball. You give them a chance to get started, they might really take off.
Could we ever see an AOC or a Marjorie Taylor Greene?
No, they're too extreme. You cannot be extreme. You have to be middle of the road, as near the middle of the road as you can get to become president.
And certainly Bernie Sanders is over 80 now, I believe, or close to it. So that whole guard is really changing.
Yeah.
And so is the Republican guard. It's all rather old. Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump and that whole bunch. So we'll see what happens. But we're with Mary Ellen Withrow here, and we're going to come back and talk about the big arraignment that happened in Florida and the trial that's coming up, federal indictment of former President Donald Trump. Be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Hey, back here on Scott Spears Now with 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, talking about the historic indictment of a president by the federal government. First time it's ever happened in 250 years of this country, nearly 250 years, and 46 presidents. How about that? Mary Ellen, one person I want to talk about quickly before we get to the arraignment, which happened yesterday. is whenever you're watching this, it happened yesterday when we're taping this. But Mitt Romney has spoken out, Republican, former candidate for president, against what Trump has done. You certainly were not a fan of Mitt Romney when he was running for president. What do you make of him and how he's treated in the Republican Party now and the things he says?
Well, I give him credit for speaking out, and I think that they have treated him terribly in the Republican Party. I don't see how he really stands all of the bad treatment that he's had.
Well, he and the late John McCain, who were not Trump fans, have really gotten the brunt of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And they were both the Republican nominee for president against Obama.
Yes.
It's a very, very interesting thing. Now, the arraignment. We've talked about the indictment. Now the arraignment. Now, yesterday, what happened with... what did you make of the arraignment of Trump?
Well, I thought they treated him very carefully. I was amazed, and then I'm really concerned that the judge has been appointed by him. I'm afraid he's going to get real special treatment. And I keep asking everybody, what's going to happen to his Secret Service? And everybody comes up with some answer here and there. And I said, if he goes to prison, where's his Secret Service going to be?
Well, that's a good question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're supposed to take care of him. And, are they going to be in the cell with him, or where are they going to be?
Well, and that's what makes this so unprecedented.
Yes, right.
What in the world do you do? And it was interesting. A lot of people were angry because the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, special counsel, did show up at the arraignment.
I thought that was really good that he was there. I really think he's doing a great job.
And apparently sat right behind Donald Trump. Now, we couldn't see it because it was not televised, but that's what was said.
Yes, I thought that was very smart.
Now, he has said that everybody is equal under the law, but a lot of people were angry this morning that Donald Trump got to keep his passport. There was no mug shot.
Yeah.
He got to keep his firearm. There was no bond.
Firearm?
I believe he got to keep his firearm, too. I don't know that he carries a firearm, but they didn't
I was going to say, I didn't know.
I don't know that he does, but they didn't take that right away from him, which they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is he being treated equally under the law?
No, not at all.
So, does that make this case different in the end?
Mm-hmm. And if he gets sent away, he's going to be at a special place.
That's exactly right. He'll be in a special place for sure.
It'll be a very special place, I'm sure.
Well, the indictment was strange, or the arraignment was strange, because he went to a Cuban restaurant after the arraignment, just up the road a couple miles, and offered to buy everybody's dinner.
Yes.
And he looked kind of happy.
Yes. Well, he's trying to look happy. He's doing his best.
A lot of people said that he was making a mockery of the judicial process.
Yes. Yeah.
But who's going to stop him?
Well, they should tell him he can't do that. That the judge should say, you are not going to make fun of this procedure in public, and that's what he's doing.
Went right to a rally last night.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah. Well, did you see any of that rally last night?
Yes, I saw some of it. Yeah.
But what did you make of his mood and temperament at that rally?
Well, he was putting on a show, his usual show. Trying to talk about how, I got a kick out of the statement that he didn't have time to go through all those papers. I thought he's got all the time in the world, That was his reason for not doing what they asked him to do. He said he didn't have time to go through all those papers.
He's got an interesting answer for just about everything.
Right.
And they were in his restroom where a lot of people do their reading.
Yes, right.
He could have went through them right there.
They were laughing about that on The View this morning. Whoopi Goldberg said, doesn't everybody put things in their bathroom?
Well, that is so. It is. You know, if you would have said this about a former president of the United States 5 years ago,
Yes.
they would have said that's not reality.
That's right.
But it is.
Yeah, it has become reality. It is so amazing to me what people will accept today that they wouldn't accept 10 years ago.
You know, what astonishes me is I don't think it was 2 hours after the indictment on Friday that he had already got on his social media platform, Truth Social, I believe is what it's called, and he had called the special counsel a deranged psycho.
Yes.
Now, if you or I called a federal special prosecutor a deranged psycho, I think we would be in prison.
Probably be looked at pretty carefully.
Yeah, but when he does it, people just say, well, that's Trump.
I know. Yeah. He does. He gets away with murder. He really does, as he said he could on Fifth Avenue.
What is it? You know, has that saying, which happened before he was elected president, and the wording of it, what was it exactly?
I could murder somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it.
Yeah, people would still follow him.
Yes.
And has that come to pass?
Yeah, I think it has.
Is there any other president in the history of the United States that has ever been the case for?
Well, not that we know of, you know.
What is that about that? And they keep saying 30 to 35% of the country, that this man can do no wrong.
I know. Mm-hmm.
I was having the conversation the other day with somebody about Bill Clinton, because Bill Clinton was a very popular president, left office with a surplus. He won both of his elections pretty handedly, the second one bigger than the first. He unseated a popular president at that time who had just won Desert Storm, George Herbert Walker Bush, and yet when the Monica Lewinsky thing came about and the impeachment, a lot of Democrats did turn on him, to the point where Al Gore did not even ask him to campaign for him in 2000, and Hillary did not have him campaign for her in the Senate race in 2000 that she ran for. So there has always been, no matter, and Iran-Contra with Reagan. Reagan was very popular. But when Iran-Contra happened, a lot of people distanced themselves from Ronald Reagan. Yeah. Certainly Nixon. When Watergate happened, a lot of people distanced themselves from Nixon. Mm-hmm. Not Trump. They don't leave.
And remember when George W. Bush, had Iraq, the war for Iraq, how everybody was so upset too. That was another time when I think people were really against that.
Well, you're right. After 9/11, George W. Bush had over a 90% approval rating in this country. Yeah. And by the time he left office, after the Iraq War and Katrina, which was another moment that hurt him pretty bad, I believe he was down in the 30%. Mm-hmm. So people did change their mind.
Yes, they did.
But now they don't with Trump.
Well, Trump does not have the support that he did have. He's gotten a little boost here in the last few days, evidently. I mean, he's raising money like crazy.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to put. I believe I wrote this down. $2 million he raised after the arraignment.
Yeah.
That's one day he's raised $2 million after he was arraigned. Now, understand. Now, I don't know when people will be watching this. People could be watching this 100 years from now, Mary Ellen. This could live on forever. Yeah. Now, there was a president who, after he was charged by the federal government and brought down to the courthouse and arraigned, he raised $2 million in 24 hours to run for president. Mm-hmm. Why? How?
Yes. Well, there's people are still supporting him somewhat, but it's strange how people react. That when Clinton had his time with Monica Lewinsky, he had the same support build up. It's people react unusually sometimes, I think.
Do people can you be the president now without being somewhat entertaining? Could you be a good politician, a good strategist, really prepared for the job, but if you don't have an entertaining personality, could you ever get elected?
I don't know. We've had a lot of presidents that weren't entertaining. I can think of. I didn't think George W. Bush was very entertaining at all. He never said anything that I wanted to listen to.
Well, yeah, Nixon was not a charismatic guy.
No, absolutely not. But back to Nixon, though, he changed after he was out of office. He helped other presidents. I read this book where he was so helpful to the presidents afterwards that came after him. It was
Both Republican and Democrat.
Yes, that's what was amazing. Yeah.
It was interesting when it came, they all said it, from Reagan, Republican, to Clinton, a Democrat, to George Bush Sr., who was a Republican. They all said when it came to foreign affairs, nobody was better than Nixon.
That's right. Yeah.
He was the one they went to.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, he could not hold on to his office.
No. Well, he got greedy. He was greedy.
But today, could he? In the Trump era? Could Nixon have done this and stayed? Done what he did and stayed?
It's hard to tell. I don't know.
Because now, the party does not turn on you. There's no Barry Goldwater to go down to the White House to say to Nixon, you don't have the votes.
No, they told him how they felt, but nobody's doing that. I mean, now, except Chris Christie and I guess Nikki Haley said a couple of things to not support Trump, didn't she?
They all have, I think, changed their tune except DeSantis. I think DeSantis is still saying witch hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now, when we look at, let's say Trump does end up getting prison time, and let's say it happens within the next 6 months, who fills that vacuum in the Republican Party of that field?
Well, it doesn't seem that there's any law to prevent him from being elected.
Well, that is true. Now, that's an interesting thing.
Think about that.
In prison.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you run the country from prison?
It's going to be hard.
Now here's a question. Now this is how weird the country has gotten. Because I certainly don't think he would drop out if he went to prison.
Where are you going to put all your people?
That's right. And then where are you going to put the documents? Where are you going to hide the documents?
That's another problem.
That's a whole other problem once you're in prison. But now think of, if he is sent to prison, could that get him elected? Because he'll get so much publicity, they'll be so focused in on him that his people will be so outraged that he's in prison. Could that lead him to the White House? Or I guess the big house.
You never know. I mean, strange things happen.
How is it this country has never amended the Constitution
They should.
to say that somebody cannot be president who's in prison?
They should pass a law real quick.
Yeah, well, you would, of anybody who's in prison. That's a bad thing to go with.
Remember the guy in the sheriff in the eastern part of the state of Ohio that went to prison? Do you remember that?
Was that trafficant?
Yes.
Yes.
Trafficant. Yeah, all of a sudden I thought of Trafficant and his time in prison.
And he had strange hair, too.
Yes. I went to a lot of his fundraisers.
Now, he was entertaining.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. He'd get up and
he
speak.
was very, he was a lot of fun. Yeah.
What is it about those fringe people?
Yes, well.
We like them.
Yes, we do. Yeah, it pays to have a little fun in office, I think.
Could our Governor DeWine, who I think is done after this term, could he ever be anything national at this point?
Are you sure he's done after this term?
I don't know. Maybe not. He likes government.
He's been here a long time, and I don't know if this is it or not, but what was the question?
Well, could he be anything on the national? What happened to Kasich?
Well, he's disappeared. He's got a job somewhere, and he's, I think, evidently happy.
And Sarah Palin, what happened to her? She was a big deal.
Well, she's still in Alaska. Yeah.
She kind of toned down after a while.
Well, yeah, I think she needed to. Yeah.
Paul Ryan?
Paul Ryan is still active, I think.
Not elected anymore.
No,
Former
not
Speaker of
elected,
the
but
House.
he's doing work of some kind.
Do you think, and now we know that the federal government, I believe, has over a 99% conviction rate on things like this, but is it a good possibility this will land Trump in prison?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen. As we've been talking, how he's getting special treatment, who knows what's going to happen. But I think that Jack Smith has done a marvelous job, and I was so happy that he was sitting behind Trump at the event.
And apparently, from what we were told by reporters, he just kept staring at Trump.
Yeah.
And Trump would not look at him.
Right. Yeah.
It was, and what that made me think, now this was just the reports, none of us were inside the courtroom, and there were no pictures, there were some sketches, I believe, made, but they said Trump had his head hung over, hands in his lap, kind of shoulders slumped. So is the Trump we see in front of the camera, is that a show, do you think?
Sure, yeah, I think it is. But the fact that Jack Smith was there gives support to all the people that's working on all of this. All those people that worked so hard to have this happen are getting his support by him being there, and I think it was a great thing that he was there.
Now, one thing that has been brought up a lot in the last couple of days is the fact that Biden is still under investigation for documents that he had. Pence has been cleared. Biden is still under investigation. Do you think because of this indictment that something could happen with Biden?
No, I don't think so. He hasn't done anything.
Why do you think that has all of a sudden been brought up so much? Because of this indictment?
Well, because the people that are supporting Trump use this as an argument, and they have nothing to talk about, but yet they just keep talking about that. They talk about Hillary. It's disgusting. Hillary, nothing compares to what Trump did.
Why are they... I believe Trump mentioned Hillary the other day.
Yeah, sure.
Now, she has not been in political life now for about 6-7 years. But yet he still mentions her.
Well, that was his opponent, and he still has a grudge.
Did Donald Trump, the things he said, when we look back at the 2016 election, when he said he didn't know who David Duke was, when he made fun of the reporter who was handicapped, when he talked about women on the Access Hollywood bus, when he said all these things that you used not to be able to say. John McCain made fun of his war service. When he did this, did it allow for people who maybe thought those things and believed those things to say them in public now?
Well, I think everybody was shocked when he said all those things, and they thought that there would be a bad reaction by people, and there was no bad reaction. That's what was the big surprise. I think every time he did something, we'd think, well, that's the end of him. It wasn't. He just kept going.
Here we are, 2 indictments later, a federal indictment, a state indictment in New York, and possibly one coming in August in Georgia, if not sooner, over the election. Mm-hmm. Possibly January 6th, also from the federal government. That's still being investigated. And Trump's still running for office and in the lead by 30 points at this particular point. Did President Obama give us President Trump? Because a lot of people feel that White House Correspondents' Dinner, in which he made such fun of Trump, was the night that Trump decided he was going to run. And also, Trump was on that birther thing for about the last 2 years of Obama's presidency.
Yeah, he was. I think that very well could be the case, yeah.
Because there was a real backlash, that whole birther thing, to Obama.
Yeah.
And the people who did not like Obama did not like him. And it seemed like Trump was able to just sweep those people up and make those his people.
Yeah.
And in the end, how do you think President Obama felt welcoming Trump as his successor?
He was very gracious. Yeah, I thought, I don't know if I could have been that gracious.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very nice. And then Trump didn't even welcome Biden, did he?
I don't think so. There was a lot of
No.
bad stuff going on at
Yeah,
that point.
right. Yeah, yeah. That was, the January 6th thing was still so alive in everybody's mind, and yeah, it's very hard to be really nice to your opponent. Yeah, it is.
Did you ever see, though, anybody be as openly nasty in public as
No.
Trump was?
No. Mm-mm.
Did it change the political world?
It did. Yeah, it's everything is totally different now thanks to him.
Would you feel comfortable running today for an office, the way things are?
Well, I don't have the energy to run for office.
If this was 20 years ago, would you like the way things are?
No, I wouldn't. But I might run for office. I don't know, because things had to appeal to me to run, for me to run, and I can't really answer that.
Would you have to change how you ran for office today as opposed? Yeah.
Yeah, social media. You run on that.
When we look here in Ohio, because we will have an election next year, statewide election, do you think anything has changed since the last election in which the Republicans swept Ohio? Are we a swing state?
No, we're not. It's too bad. I think to be a healthy government, it should be both parties should be very healthy parties, and they're not.
You know, Clinton won Ohio twice, Obama won Ohio twice, George W. Bush won Ohio twice. How is it that we now have become a state that doesn't elect the president? We went for Trump last time and he did not win.
Yeah.
Where did the Obama voters go? Where did the Clinton voters go?
No, I don't know. I've been concerned about that because I think that both parties are not healthy. And in order to have good government, you have to have healthy parties. And because now it's hard for a Democrat to run in Ohio because it's so hard to win that you don't get good people running for office, and it makes for bad government, and that is not good to have a bad government.
Are we ever going to have a day again when it is two candidates who don't have to be nasty to each other, who can just fight over the issues?
Well, it could happen. You get, I think that there's a lot of people out there that can run good campaigns, really.
Can Trump win a national election with the following that he has? The Republicans did not win the midterms in 2018. They did not win the 2020 election. Biden was elected, and they did not win the 2022 midterm. So, even though they're getting a lot of attention, even though Trump gets a lot of attention, could he still win?
I really don't think so, but I think everybody has to be very, very alert to all of this, and we can't let that happen.
Are the Democrats really behind Biden right now?
Well, they should be.
Is there anything that's going to work against him besides age? That's the thing you always hear.
I don't think so. He's done a good job. I think he knows so much about government because he's been in it so long that he can make good decisions, and he does it. Think about the debt situation and how that was handled so well. That was handled beautifully, and everybody ought to give him credit for that, because it was not easy to do.
What do you make of what's going on with Treasury today? I think they're not going to raise the interest rates.
No, they're not. That was good news.
What do you make of the inflation that we've seen? Is there any way we're going to get out of that?
I don't know. I was in the grocery store this morning, and I don't know.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
Because that, I think, what will be the focal point of the next presidential election? Is it going to be inflation?
It's hard to say yet. I think it's too soon to try to figure that out. You have to wait and see what's going on a little later.
Are we in a healthy economy now? It's strange because unemployment doesn't seem to be up, but prices are.
Yes.
Which that normally...
Yeah, unemployment is in beautiful shape.
Yeah, but prices are up.
And the prices of houses is way up. The prices of cars are way up. I don't know.
So I don't know. I mean, that's pretty well how Clinton, besides his charisma, was able to defeat a sitting president, George Bush. Even though he was popular with the war, the economy was not in good shape.
Yeah, his worst thing that happened right before the election was when he was in the grocery store and he didn't understand how the price was read, and I think that caused him to lose the election.
It very well could have. And this time I keep hearing that Trump is not going to participate in the national debates.
Right, I keep hearing that too.
So if that happens, if we have no presidential debates, I think they'll probably have conventions. What is going to sway people's vote? Or is it just locked in?
They said a while back, they said, why do we still have conventions? I don't think they're important anymore.
No, they actually used to be where you decided the candidates.
Yeah, but they don't do that anymore.
No.
It's all decided before you get to that. And it's very costly for the parties to do that. I mean, they could save some money and not have a convention.
Is there, when you like a candidate now, let's say you like Biden, is there anything that can change your mind between now and the election that would make you not like Biden? Or conversely, if you're a Trump person, is there anything that can really change your mind? Debates used to do it. Like you said, the George H.W. Bush moment at the supermarket. There have been things like that. Is there anything like that anymore that can change people's mind?
Well, I think so, but there would be nothing that would change my mind, I don't think.
Do you think we're going to see anything out of this Kennedy?
Out of this...
Kennedy, who's running for president, Bobby Kennedy's son?
I don't hear anything about him.
No, he's got some conspiracy theories.
Has he?
Yeah, he's different.
Well, all I did was hear him once on TV, and I haven't heard any more about him. What's he running for?
President.
Well, so is Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
That's another situation. She's ridiculous for trying to run. I don't know. Is there anybody else running?
I don't think so yet on the Democratic side, but who knows what'll happen between now and then.
You never know.
Now, when we've got about a minute and a half left here, Mary Ellen, when the history books are written, because Donald Trump will forever be a president of the United States, with these indictments, with whatever will happen, what is the story of President Trump?
Well, it's a sad story, really. So who knows what the ending will be, but we're in the middle of it right now.
Do you think he will go to prison?
I do.
You do. Mm-hmm. And if he goes to prison, quickly, we did not see any violence, thank goodness, when he was arraigned.
I was glad of that.
Do you think we're going to see anything from here on out, or was that a pretty good watermark that this is going to be okay?
Well, I think the arrests of everybody that was involved in January 6th had a lot to do with how this is being handled. I think that they were very ready for things to occur yesterday, but thank goodness it didn't happen.
Yeah. Mary Ellen, it's always fun to be with you. It's always fun to talk about these things, and this certainly was an historic time.
It was. It is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
40th President of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and we'll keep you updated as things go on with indictments. Who knows what's going to happen in August? Who knows what's going to happen at the trial? Hopefully within the next 6 months is what Jack Smith hopes. I think the Trump people would like to kick it down the road a little bit, but we'll see what happens. For this episode of Scott Spears Now, this is Scott Spears heading for the dugout.